הזמן היו בי החלטות ברורות שאני מתחילה לשמוח להרפות מכל מה שכבר לא בחלון קטן מולי בואה בעיר הישנה שאהבתי לאהוב היא אהבה אותי בחזרה.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of Her Excellency the Honourable Margaret Beazley, ACKC, Governor of New South Wales, and Mr. Dennis Wilson. Please remain standing for the arrival of His Excellency Mr. Isaac Herzog, President of the State of Israel, and First Lady Mrs. Michal Herzog. Please welcome Miss Nova Peres, OAM, to deliver the Acknowledgement of Country.
Shalom. I acknowledge the custodians of this area of land on which we gather tonight, the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. Present, and I honour and recognise their ongoing inherent responsibility to their country. I'm a visitor to this tribal region. I am Yaru and Ginja from the East and West Kimberleys and Bunich Gagaju from Arnhem Land. Wherever we stand on this continent, it is an ancient land of an ancient people that has carried story, ceremony, songlines and spirits for tens of thousands of years. Land that holds memory and soil and strength in its people. As an Aboriginal woman, I come from one of the oldest continuous cultures on earth. My people know what it means to fight to keep language alive. We know what it means to protect culture, to hold on to identity and to remain connected to land, even when the world tries to tear that connection away. And that is why in my heart I've always felt a deep respect and kinship with the Jewish people, because you too are an ancient people, a people of story, a people of law, a people of memory, a people who carried your homeland in your hearts through exile, persecution, and darkness, and still hold on to your identity. Lashana Habaha Beiru Shalom. Next year in Jerusalem, that prayer is older than modern Australia. I've walked the streets of Jerusalem many times now and have touched the stones of ancient walls. I've stood in places where history is not written in books, but I felt it in the air, the dust, and the prayers of the people. And I've cried not just from sorrow, but from the overwhelming feeling of standing on another people's ancient land and recognising something deeply familiar. Resilience, survival, and to me is an extraordinary example of self-determination, a modern nation for Indigenous peoples around the world. Tonight, I wear the Bukawuru, a ceremonial Yolngu headpiece made from sacred feathers. It was made specifically for me, and I honour its significance. It is not decoration, it is a ceremonial object connected to identity and ancestral tradition, worn during important cultural occasions. It represents the tongues of the Götra, the fire. The last time I wore this headpiece was when I stood in Israel, in Jerusalem, with other global Indigenous leaders showing our solidarity for the Jewish people. And today, as I welcome President Herzog and the First Lady Herzog to this country, I wear it again as a symbol of respect between two of the world's oldest living cultures. We gather here in a place far from Israel, bound together by shared values of freedom, dignity, and the right of a people to live free in peace and safety. Tonight we gather to grieve for the loss of innocent lives taken on December the 14th by acts of evil driven by the same hatred that fueled the atrocities of October 7. Mr. President, I am truly sorry for all that your people have endured over time, and especially these last 28 months, both in Israel and here in Australia. I am sorry for the way in which Jew hatred is mutated over the centuries, from anti-Judaism to anti-Semitism, to its latest manifestation, anti-Zionism, hurling its libels of genocide, apartheid and settler colonialism at yourself, at the State of Israel and all who stand with you and Israel, and at all of us who stand here tonight. That ancient hatred must not stand, and together we will overcome it. On behalf of all of those who stand me and support me in supporting Israel and the Jewish community, we offer our deepest condolences, and at the same time we offer you a warm and heartfelt welcome to our ancestral lands. President Herzog, you come here not only as the head of state of Israel, but as a representative of an ancient people whose story stretches back thousands of years, a people who have contributed enormously to humanity, globally, and to this nation of Australia. The Jewish community of Australia has enriched this country in immeasurable ways in philanthropy, beginning with the military service of Sir John Monash and so many others, in medicine, science, business, law, the arts, education, and the very moral fabric of this country. Even when living in the diaspora, we know how deeply connected our Jewish Australians are to their homeland, yet you have never stopped loving your other home here in Australia. And Australia is better because you are here amongst us. The Jewish community is one of the smallest minority groups, yet you are the greatest contributors to this country. And I thank you for your profound love of humanity and for this country. To everyone here tonight, I will never forget that it is you, the Jewish people, you have helped build this nation up. That is all you have ever done, is build us up. You have helped shape our character, and tonight I stand with you, and I will not stop standing with you. We stand together in remembrance, and I mourn with you. We shall never forget the beautiful innocent lives taken in the Hanukkah terror attack here on Australian soil. We shall never forget those who were injured, those who risked their own lives to help others and to shield them. We should never forget the families, the Bondi community, our Australian community, and the deep trauma that such an act of hatred leaves behind. From one ancient people to another, I say this: we see you, we stand with you, and we welcome you. To this ancient continent under the southern sky, may this gathering be one of unity, strength and hope. Stars can only be seen in the darkness, like the Star of David, the Magen David. May you continue to bring light to us all. May light overcome darkness, may truth overcome lies, may humanity overcome hatred, may peace be the ultimate victor, and may all peoples, ancient and modern, live in harmony. Welcome to Australia, Mr. President, First Lady Herzog, and may the spirits of my ancestors protect you whilst you walk this continent. Am Israel Chai.
We are honored to acknowledge the distinguished guests with us here this evening. His Excellency, Mr. Amir Maimon, Ambassador of the State of Israel, and Mrs. Tal Maimon, the Premier of New South Wales, the Honourable Chris Minns, MP, the Honourable Scott Morrison, former Prime Minister of Australia, Major General Doron Almog, Chairman of the Executive of the Jewish Agency for Israel, Mr. Yaakov Hagoel, Chairperson of the World Zionist Organization. We also acknowledge former federal ministers including the Honourable Peter Dutton and the Honourable Josh Frydenberg, as well as past and present elected representatives from federal, state and local government, consular officials, rabbis, Jewish community leaders and all esteemed guests joining us this evening. Please rise for the Australian National Anthem, followed by the prayers for the State of Israel and the IDF, performed by Shir, the Australian Jewish Music Festival.
Avinu, Avinu, Shebashamayim, Tzur Yisrael vegoalo. Avinu, Avinu, Shebashamayim, Tzur Yisrael vegoalo. Barech, barech, et medinat Yisrael, Reshit tzmichat geulatenu, Hagel alecha, bevrat chasdecha,
ראשיה, שריה, לחיילים. מי שברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה על משמר ארצנו וערי אלוהינו, מגבול הלבנון ים מדבר מצרים, ומן הים הגדול עד לבוא הערבה, חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל, ונאמר
Please welcome Mr. Jeremy Leebler, President of the Zionist Federation of Australia.
We are here tonight carrying something heavy, but also something shared. Bondi was not just an act of terror. It was a rupture. It tore apart the illusion that distance would keep hatred at bay. It has forever changed the way Australian Jews see themselves in this country. Within hours of the attack, President Herzog called me. "Israel is with you," he said. "Just as you stood with us, we now stand with you." In Jewish tradition, there is a phrase in the Talmud, Kol Yisrael Aravim Zel Hazeh. All of Israel are responsible for one another. We are a single animated body, animated by a single soul. When limbs in Australia are riddled with bullets, the heart bleeds in Israel. Eyes weep in New York, and breath catches in London. We feel each other deeply, symbiotically, no matter what the distance is. And since the 7th of October, Israel has consumed our waking moments. We have cried and prayed, advocated and ruminated. Our gaze, fixed anxiously on Israel, has never strayed. I'll never forget the moment after Bondi when families of Israeli hostages who had been held in Gaza reached out to us to give us strength. For 2 years, we stood with them, and suddenly they stood with us. It was vulnerable and deeply, deeply moving. But ultimately, it was a reminder that we are bound not by geography, but by peoplehood. Mr. President, your presence here tonight is Jewish peoplehood lived. And our community understands that, not as theory, but as memory. Many of our families have come from places where being Jewish meant living with fear. Europe, Russia, South Africa, the Middle East. We came to Australia and we built full lives. We flourished, we contributed. We believed that we could live openly as Jews without having to second-guess our safety. For decades, that sense of safety and security rested on two covenants. The first was the covenant of Israel, that a Jewish state exists as a sanctuary and a safeguard for the Jewish people. The other was the covenant of Australia, that our government would protect its Jewish citizens fully and without hesitation. A covenant that was strengthened by decades of bipartisan support and relationship between successive Israeli and Australian governments. In the past 2.5 years, both of those covenants have been tested. October the 7th shattered the illusion of Israel's invincibility. And here in Australia, we have watched anti-Semitism creep from the fringes into respectable places, into academia, the arts, and progressive circles, where our fear is mocked, our history is denied, and our right to self-determination is put on trial. The truth is that in 2026, the respectable way to express anti-Semitism is through the demonisation of Israel. When Israel is smeared as uniquely evil, Zionist becomes a safe word for Jew. And that is why false accusations of genocide and apartheid are not legitimate critique. They are a verdict. They are a moral inversion designed to strip Jews of legitimacy and turn Jewish survival into a crime. Bondi reminded us what happens when hatred is tolerated in polite society. It metastasizes and it destroys us from within. And it is for this reason that the President's visit at this very moment matters so deeply. Not as ceremony, as clarity. The invitation to President Herzog for a state visit tells the purveyors of anti-Semitic hate that Australian Jews belong here. That our connection to Israel is legitimate, and that attempts to demonise it will not be tolerated. It was a choice, the right choice, and I commend the Australian government for making it. If there is one thing that our enemies should now understand, it is this: we are not going anywhere. The State of Israel is not going anywhere. We will not be silenced. We will not retreat from our identity, from our values, or from our place in this country. Jewish history has shown time and time again that every attempt to extinguish us only strengthens our resolve. We add light. We do not hide it. And when Jewish life is lived proudly and openly, without apology, it becomes its own answer to hatred. President Herzog and First Lady Michal have embodied that spirit in Israel, and they embody it here tonight. In Israel, they have been a source of strength and unity during one of the darkest periods in the nation's history. They have stood with hostage families, the wounded and the bereaved, and they have held the nation together when division threatened to tear it apart, carrying sorrow with strength and meeting pain with purpose. By coming here tonight, President Herzog extends that same strength to a community that has been shaken, but whose light will not be dimmed. The last 2 years have bound us through trauma. My hope is that the years ahead will bind us through strength and through pride, that we lift one another, not only in moments of loss, but in moments of confidence and renewal. Mr. President, I still remember, as a child, almost exactly 40 years ago, watching your father, President Chaim Herzog, come to Australia on the first official visit of a sitting Israeli president. And even then, I understood what it meant. It told Australian Jews that while we belong in this beautiful sunburnt country, we also belong to something larger than ourselves. Tonight, You come in different circumstances, but for the same purpose, to stand with this community, and I thank you for it. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honour to ask you all to rise and welcome His Excellency, the President of the State of Israel, Mr. Isaac Herzog, to address us.
Thank you. Toda rabba, dear friends, sisters and brothers, achiotai ve'echai. I'm here to tell you, Am Yisrael chai. And no one will deter us. No one. This morning, soon after my wife Michal and I landed in Sydney, we went directly to Bondi Beach. At the memorial site, we placed 2 stones from Jerusalem and stood in silence, thinking of the lives that were taken. We thought of Rabbi Eli, of Matilda, Boris and Sophia, Edith, Reuven, Tanya, Marika, Rabbi Yaakov, Adam, Tibor, Peter, Dan, Boris, and Alexander. 15 innocent lives, Jewish and non-Jewish, gunned down by cruelty, by hate, by evil, by extremism. Dozens more were wounded as the Australian people and the Jewish people worldwide were left with trauma. The physical and emotional scars from December 14th will forever be part of our 2 nations. May the Almighty comfort you all amongst the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. המקום ינחם אתכם בין שאר אבלי ציון וירושלים. Dear friends, I'm honored to join this beautiful community, which includes bereaved families of Bondi, accompanied by bereaved families from Israel. We've longed to see you and to grieve with you, and we come bearing the prayers of your Israeli family. Thank you, my dear friend Jeremy Leebler, President of the Zionist Federation of Australia, for your leadership, for your warm introduction, for your integrity, and for procuring so many elements of this visit. Thank you, Your Excellency, Governor of New South Wales, Margaret Beasley, and the Honourable Premier Chris Minns, true friends of this wonderful community. The Honourable Scott Morrison, former Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Ron Hernig, MP, Minister for Local Government, Israel's Ambassador to Australia, Amir Maimon, a very fine public servant of Israel who will be completing his term this week, and we thank him for his outstanding service. I welcome with me Chairman of the World Zionist Organization, Yaakov Chaguel, Chairman of the Jewish Agency for Israel, Doron Almog, and Chairperson of the Fund for Victims of Terror, and Jay Reddy, former MK Ayelet Nachmias Verbin, and finally, President of the New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies, our dear friend David Ossip, and Yes. And President of the New South Wales UIA and co-host of this evening, Gary Perlstein. Thank you, leaders, volunteers, public servants, all people of goodwill, members of this wonderful community. I will never forget the early reports I received in Jerusalem about a mass shooting in Sydney. First we heard it was at the iconic Bondi Beach. And then we learned this terror attack targeted the Jewish community gathered for the first light of Hanukkah. Jewish hearts around the world missed a beat. By the time we lit the first candles in Jerusalem, darkness claimed the lives of 15 innocent people in Sydney. We will never forget the people we lost, the wounds that were suffered, the families that grieve. And we will never forget the extraordinary, ordinary people who demonstrated courage and humanity by running towards the fire to rescue strangers. Absolutely. To all the heroes of Bondi, those who lent a hand, those who prayed for their wounded neighbors, those who gave blood, those who brought flowers and wrote letters, those who sent a meal, those who embraced this incredible community, each and every one of you has the deep admiration, the respect, and the prayers of the Israeli people, for you are all the finest of Australia. Sisters and brothers, I know the tragedy of Bondi is not an isolated event. I know also that it follows 2 agonizing years for this community. Your Jewish identities became targets in Australia, just as you watched a massacre unfold in Israel. At 6:29 a.m. on October 7th, Simchat Torah, Hamas launched a savage war on Israel. Thousands of bloodthirsty jihadist terrorists swarmed into our sovereign state. The devastating trauma impacted every city, every community, every single family in the state of Israel. Every Israeli knows somebody who was killed, abducted, wounded, or abused. Entire families were wiped out. 251 men, women, and children were taken hostage into the dungeons of Hamas in Gaza. Israel was broken-hearted. The Jewish Democratic State of Israel was fighting to defend itself in a war we did not seek. We did not choose that war. 2 weeks ago, after 843 long days of battle, of heroism, of our soldiers and people, our last hostage, our hero, Ran Gviri, returned home. Israel was finally united with all our fallen sons and daughters. Only now are we beginning to process this terrible trauma. Only now can we allow ourselves to truly mourn the nearly 2,000 people we lost. Friends, the hatred that triggered the shooting at Bondi is the very same age-old plague of anti-Semitism endured by our parents and grandparents. It began long before October 7th, generations before the State of Israel was born. Yet somehow, the October 7th massacre, the greatest mass murder of Jews since the Shoah, emboldened closeted anti-Semites here in Australia and all around the world. The horrors in Israel, empowered by jihadi extremism to rear its ugly head here in the country that welcomed thousands and thousands of survivors of the Holocaust, refugees of pogroms, Jews re-emerging behind the Iron Curtain. This is what it means to globalize the Intifada. We all recall the sickening chants near the Opera House, the firebombing of Atas Israel Synagogue in Melbourne, the boycotts and threats, the colleagues who turned their backs on their Jewish and Israeli associates, the attacks on college campuses, the escalating rhetoric and shrieking silence. That was the prelude to Bondi. Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel once taught us, to remain silent and indifferent is the greatest sin of all. Indeed, the silence, the breach of faith and breach of friendships, were the insult added to the injury. This is why, dear friends, we are here in Sydney today. Why we had to come. We had to be here with you, hug you, strengthen you, and tell you, Am Yisrael Chai. I wish to explain. Throughout the war in Israel, Michal and I paid Shiva calls and met with over 1,600 bereaved families. Two of them are here with us tonight. Izhar Lifshitz, son of Oded and Yochevet. Yochevet was 85 when she was taken hostage to Gaza from near Oz and returned. And Oded, 86, his body was returned after hundreds of days. And Noah and Itzik Bunzel, parents of a war hero, Amit Bunzel, from the paratroopers, who was killed while searching and trying to rescue the hostages. Day after day after day, we visited injured civilians and soldiers, deeply traumatized children and first responders, Jews, Muslims, Christians, Bedouins, Druze, the entire beautiful tapestry of Israel, as well as dozens of foreign nationals. We saw them all. We insisted on meeting these families in person so that we could look them in the eye as they share the pain, the anger, and the shock. Because there are certain emotions one can only fully convey through action, only by showing up. And so, in the wake of the horror at Bondi Beach, Michal and I felt we must come to Australia to look you in the eye, to show up for you. We've come here not simply to tell you that we are with you, but to show you that we are with you. We are here to tell you, dear family, Mishpacha Ahuva, we have come from the land of Israel, from the beating heart of our people in Jerusalem, from your sisters and brothers, to demonstrate our solidarity, our love, and our might and our heart, body, and soul. We are here to express that you, the Jews of Australia, are as much part of Israel as Israel is part of you. We've come to declare you are not alone. We've come to be with you just as you have always shown up for us. Australian Jewry has been with us in our greatest hours of need. This community is inspirational in its connection to Israel, in its proactive Zionism. You carry your Jewish identities with pride, and I embrace the opportunity to recognize this incredible community, your contribution to Australia and to the people of Israel. I view my visit here as an opportunity to tell the real story of who we are all as people and as a nation. And I'm here also to reinvigorate the important relations between our two strong democracies. I know that by working together, we will find a way to expand collaboration and increase understandings and upgrade our relations, and I intend during my visit to discuss it with your national leadership. So, dear friends, 40 years ago, as was mentioned, my late parents, Chaim and Ora Herzog, Zichram Levracha, traveled to Australia on the first state visit of an Israeli president and first lady. When they arrived at the Central Synagogue at Bondi, my parents were greeted by 1,000 Jewish children singing and waving flags. Now I know, I wrote originally that I'm sure some of those young children are with us here tonight. Well, one of them, of course, is young Jeremy Leebler. Because for Australian Jewry, multi-generational Jewish engagement is an ongoing family tradition. Australian Jews have a deep sense of purpose and a strong and proud sense of history. The history that connects our nations, Australia and Israel, is a history of Anzac's liberation of Beersheba and the land of Israel, which led later to the nation-state of Israel. The history of offering refuge to survivors of the Shoah. The history of casting the first UN vote in favor of the nation-state of the Jewish people with the immortal words, Australia, yes. Our nations are bound by this history, by decades of close friendships, by this outstanding Jewish community, and now, dear friends, unfortunately bound by tragedy as well. Together we grieve, together we remember, and together we will build a safer future we can all share together. I thank you all, and I salute the many leaders in this room. I salute the unsung heroes of all ages, the patriots, the kind neighbors, the good people of Sydney, the good people of Australia. To each and every one of you, I say in conclusion, Australia, yes. Yes to thriving Jewish communities. Yes to respecting those who believe and practice. Yes to safeguarding communities of every background, color, religion, and accent, as was beautifully drawn by our dear friend in the beginning of this event. Yes to dialing down hateful rhetoric. Yes to rebuilding trust and renewing faith. Yes to responsible leadership. Yes to moral clarity. Yes to clear, proactive measures. Yes to mutual responsibility. Yes to a resilient Israel. Yes to strong bipartisan relations between Israel and Australia. And as we say in Hebrew, Chizku ve'imtzu, Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President Herzog, thank you for those truly extraordinary words. We are so honoured to have you and Michal here with us here this evening in Sydney, and I hope that you and your entire delegation is feeling very welcome here in Australia. Thank you. Your Excellency, the Governor of New South Wales, Margaret Beasley, and Mr Wilson, two individuals who have gone above and beyond the call of duty over the past couple of months to be here for the Jewish community. Thank you for being with us tonight. Our dear friend, the Premier of New South Wales, Chris Minns, and keep the applause coming for his wonderful wife, Anna. Political leaders, including past prime ministers, ministers and shadow ministers, distinguished guests and friends from outside the Jewish community, learned rabbis, communal leaders, ladies and gentlemen. It is one of the great improbabilities of recent times that the savagery of the October 7 invasion into Israel would set off a chain of events which would plague Jewish communities around the world and finally culminate in the massacre at Bondi Beach just under 2 months ago, at which 15 beautiful souls were lost. It is one of the disturbing symmetries that a period of time which began with an attack on Israel by Hamas, that vile terrorist organisation backed by Iran, would be a prelude to attacks against our community here in Sydney, on the other side of the world, including attacks orchestrated by the Iranian regime during last year's Summer of Terror. And I should just pause there because I want to use this opportunity to give a shout out to the incredibly brave Iranian people who have come to the streets to protest against their despotic regime over the past few weeks at great personal cost. And tonight we must send our love and unwavering support to them. And it is one of the tragic ironies that the support the Australian Jewish community offered to the people of Israel in the immediate aftermath of October 7 would ultimately need to be reciprocated. And just over 2 years later, bring the President of Israel here to Sydney, not merely for ceremony or diplomacy, but for solidarity. Contemporary life is lived at a pace that often deprives us of perspective. History rarely announces itself in the moment, and the significance of events are often only recognised later, when time has given us distance and clarity. The magnitude of the past 2 years is still to sink in, but I think it is clear to all of us that we are living through a new chapter in Jewish history. The post-Holocaust era, the golden era for Jewish diaspora communities throughout the West, is ostensibly over, as anti-Semitism fully awakens from its brief and light slumber. For Australian Jews, the relative immunity that we have enjoyed from anti-Semitism since 1788 has dissipated. But what this all means is something that we are all still grappling with. We are trying to place this period in its context in Jewish history and understand what it means for us, our families, and our community in the current moment. And this has always been our people's way. For to be Jewish in 2026 is to have inherited the stories of our ancestors, who almost without exception lived through tumult in their own eras. Pogroms and inquisitions, crusades and farhuds, exiles, expulsions, and ultimately the Shoah. The questions that we are asking tonight and the emotions that we have experienced were almost certainly asked by generations that preceded us who experienced similar events. But there is one enormous difference, and that, of course, is that we are all blessed to live in an era in which the State of Israel exists. For 2,000 years, across the four corners of the earth, the Jewish people never stopped dreaming about and praying for the land of Israel. In the darkest of days and the falsest of dawns, they never stopped dreaming about a refuge, a safe haven, about re-establishing sovereignty in our ancient homeland and regaining control over our own destiny. And this is the meaning of Zionism. It's not an abstract theory, but rather the lived experience of our people and our determination to shape our own destiny. And that's why tonight we come together and we proclaim that we are proud Australians, we are proud Jews, and yes, unashamedly, we are proud Zionists and we are proud of the State of Israel. There should be nothing controversial about Jews and non-Jews who believe in the right of the Jewish people to have a homeland. And for those anti-Semites who promise Jews that they will be spared or venerated if they renounce Zionism or throw Israel under the bus, they need to know that we are not interested. Our destinies are intertwined with Israel. And we know that hatred of Israel is merely a smokescreen for anti-Semitism. Those who had the audacity to claim that President Herzog's visit would lead to more anti-Semitism or undermine social cohesion are the same people who have poured fuel on the fire of anti-Semitism over the past 2 years, or who haven't uttered a word as anti-Semitism has run rampant. After 2,000 years, they need to realize they have to take us as we are. We've tried living without a Jewish state, and we are never, ever going back to that reality. President Herzog, your visit here to Australia at this defining moment reminds us of the difference in the contemporary Jewish condition, that we do not confront this latest barrage of anti-Semitism alone. You remind us, like you did when you called Jeremy and I on the evening of December 14, as details were still coming out, that the State of Israel stands with our community and will always be there for Jews across the world. You've reminded us that both Israel and the Jewish diaspora do not exist alone, but rather that there is mutual dependence, that the strength of the Jewish people depends on the bond between our ancestral homeland and diaspora communities across the world. We draw inspiration from the resilience of the Israeli people, and we are proud of Australia's long-standing, close relationship with Israel. That Israel, despite facing threats on all of its borders, at the same time as being relentlessly demonized, chooses not to be the besieged nation, but rather the startup nation, which will never stop yearning for and working towards peace. In the same way, our community here refuses to bow to the wishes of a vocal minority by cowering, but rather we are more determined than ever to be proud and to continue strengthening our community and Australia. Your visit and your moving words tonight could not be any more appropriate or timely. This, for us, is a moment of comfort, and we've seen your and Michal's unique warmth and empathy through the way you've embraced our community, and in particular, the victims of the Bondi massacre. But it is also a moment of redemption, to be able to stand with each of you here tonight, all 10,000 members of our community, and generations of Jews in spirit who at their time of hardship would have only dreamed to have had the president of a Jewish state with them, and appreciate the complete radical transformation of the Jewish condition in such a short space of time. This was the dream of our ancestors, and it's a dream which has become our reality. I'm now honoured to invite a man who needs no introduction to the stage, a champion of the Jewish people, someone who, together with New South Wales Police, CSG and the bureaucracy, has helped to make tonight possible. Our Premier, our dear friend, the Honourable Chris Minns. Thank you.
Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends. I'm privileged to be invited to speak briefly tonight to welcome the President of Israel and his lovely First Lady, the Governor of New South Wales, Margaret Beazley, and also to stand in solidarity with the Jewish community of Australia as they recover from the worst terrorism event Australia has ever seen. 50 years ago, the late Chaim Herzog, the first President Herzog of Israel, gave a speech to the United Nations in defence of the founding principle of his country. In his own words, he didn't come there as a supplicant. The nations of the world could vote as they wished. But as they did, they should remember a recurring truth of history. Over the centuries, he said, it has fallen to the lot of my people to be the testing agent of human decency, the touchstone of civilization, the crucible in which enduring human values are to be tested. A nation's level of humanity could invariably be judged by its behaviour towards the Jewish population. It always began with the Jews, but never ended with them. Now, friends, as Australians, we have always accepted that test of human decency. And for the most part, it hasn't required great national debates or bouts of painful soul-searching. It had come naturally to us. For in Australia, it was unremarkable that a Jewish boy could grow up in the suburbs of Melbourne and become our greatest general. That the son of a Jewish tailor from Poland could rise to the High Court and be chosen as the country's first Australian-born Governor-General. That generations of people could arrive here free from the violence and irrational hatred of the old world, having escaped the darkest crimes of humanity, and not just find the strength to build a new life for themselves, but help in the process build a modern country called Australia at the same time. Friends, the murderous ideology of anti-Semitism is a test of every society, and it's one that weighs heavily on me. We have to be able to say openly and clearly, and without excuse or reservation, that we failed that national test of human decency on December 14 at Bondi, and things must change in our state and our country. But as the book of Proverbs tells us, the crucible is for silver, the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests hearts. And it's in moments of trial where we see our hearts, what we see that our hearts are truly made of. If anyone asks you about the Australian spirit, point to the Jewish community this summer. The parents, friends, uncles, strangers who shielded children from bullets. The ordinary Jewish Australians who confronted gunmen with nothing on hand but their personal courage. The ordinary the incredibly brave and gracious words that were spoken to farewell loved ones and bind the country back together. It's in that same heart that was beating in Ahmed al-Ahmed as he risked it all for people that he'd never met before. The true Australian heart is in surf lifesavers, in New South Wales Police and in the paramedics who rushed to the scene. Mr. President, it was in every Australian who was left blank and heartbroken by this attack on our friends and on our neighbours. In moments like this, we must be unapologetic and take pride in the parts of Australian life that are intrinsic to our character, a shared respect for the rule of law, for democracy, for the freedom to live in peace, along with mutual respect for people who are different to you, whether that be because of their religion, their race, their gender, or their sexuality. These are the values that have driven and drawn millions of people to this country, that have built one of the most successful societies on earth, and we can never abandon these characteristics. Australians want to live in the kind of country so beautifully described by Rabbi Ullman, who said, "As we respond to this pain, we do it with more goodness, with more light. We bring closer a world without hatred, without violence, without fear, a world filled with dignity, with peace, with hope. Friends, a world of redemption." Thank you, Mr. President, for your warm and empathetic embrace of the big victims of Bondi. I and the rest of Australia saw this morning that it meant so much to have you grieve with them, coming from 10,000 kilometres away and yet a member of their family. It's our sincere hope that this is a step towards healing and a world without hatred or fear, a world of hope and of peace. Thank you.
Please welcome Mimi Barron, a university student and a young leader in Sydney's Jewish community.
Dear Matilda, you do not know me, but I know you. I was there. We were close that evening. I felt you. In my body, in my breath, in my Bondi. You changed me that day. You changed Australia that day. And now, you are forever with me. You are my story. The story of a young Jewish Australian. The story of a proud young Jewish Australian. Dear Matilda, we are not the same Australia we were. We will never be the same Australia we were. For years now, we have felt afraid, we have felt silenced, we have felt alone. For years now, I have felt afraid. I have felt silenced. I have felt alone. On campus, I have not felt seen. I do not feel seen. Year 1, semester 1, week 1. I was the first to arrive at my class, sitting myself down at a table. Shortly after, the table was filled with girls. Year 1, semester 1, week 2, I was still the first to arrive at my class, sitting myself down at that same table. Shortly after, the table was filled with nobody. I have never worn my Magen David on campus again. On campus, I have not felt seen. I do not feel seen. But there's a part of me which does not accept this. A part of me which holds onto light. Recently, I have felt the light over darkness. I have felt the power of my Jewish community, the power of my Bondi community, and most importantly, the power of my Australian community. We are now holding each other up. We are now placing flowers next to stones. Dear Matilda, I want to tell you about my friend, Leary. She was held hostage for over a year and recently sent me a message reading, "Never stop believing and never stop having faith, because this is the only way we move forward. Maybe we don't know each other, but we know each other. Because we know how it feels, and we know how it's hard." Leary and I have never really met, but when she could not feel the sun, I felt it for her. This is the relationship between Israel and Australia. When Israel does not feel the sun, we feel it for them, because we know Israel would do the same. And now, Israel is doing the same. Dear Matilda, the President of Israel is here now. He is here, he is with us, and it matters. It matters because it says that you were not alone. It matters because it says that we are not alone. From Birkenau to Berry to Bondi, We are a people who have felt fear. We are a people who have felt tragedy. But we are also a people who choose hope, tikva. This is the essence of our peoplehood. We do not give up hope. The people of Israel are strong. The people of Australia are strong. The people in this room tonight are strong. Dear Matilda, a song I once sang years ago, Le Dor Vador, from generation to generation. You will remain with me. You will remain with all of us. People will know your name, Matilda. Little girl, close your eyes and take my hand. Sing Le Dor, Vador, Vador. Le Dor, Vador, Vador. If all the world could just learn to understand. Sing Le Dor, Vador, Vador. Le Dor, Vador, Vador. Dear Matilda, Tanya, Marika, Adam, Peter, Dan, Boris, Sophia, Alex, Tibor, Boris, Edith, Reuven, Yaakov, and Ellie. You do not know me, but I know you. I was there. We were close that evening. I felt you in my body, in my breath, in my Bondi. I still do. You will never be forgotten. And we will honor you as we continue to protect Jewish life and Jewish way of life. Yehi Zichram Baruch. May their memories be a blessing. Am Yisrael Chai. Mimi.
We now pause to pay tribute to the victims of the Bondi terror attack on the 14th of December 2025 during Jewish community celebrations on first night of Chanukah. We invite Shana Gutnick, daughter of Reuven Morrison, who was tragically murdered in the Bondi attack, to the stage. We remember Edith Brutman. We remember Dan El-Kayam. We remember Boris and Sophia Gurman. We remember Alexander Kleitman. We remember Rabbi Yaakov Levitan. We remember Peter Meager. We remember Reuven Morrison. We remember Marika Pogani. We remember Rabbi Eli Schlenger. We remember Adam Smith. We remember Boris Tetelroyd. We remember Tanya Tretiak. We remember Tibor Weitzen. We remember Matilda. The victims we honor tonight carried their own light into the world. That light lives on in memory and in what we choose to carry forward. May the memory of those we have lost forever be a blessing. Yehi Zichram Baruch.
I've seen a recent trend pop up on social media called the sacred window theory. It describes a quiet moment in life that doesn't announce itself, a moment you only realize later. A stillness, a softness, a deep knowing. A time when your parents are still healthy, your children are still small, laughter fills your home, and the people you love are still close enough to hold. I felt that moment. I didn't know to name it at the time, but I felt it. And I remember taking a picture of it in my mind. It replays itself on the balcony of our Airbnb in Jerusalem after a whirlwind trip to Israel, my father's #1 bucket list dream. The skies are Jerusalem blue, a soft afternoon breeze, Omer Adam's music playing in the background. I'm dancing with my baby, giggling in her little I Love Jerusalem t-shirt. My twin girls are inside getting ready to go out, dancing with their Zeta, their grandfather. My mother is packing her bag, smiling at her husband of 43 years. There is light in both their eyes. Life was full. We were full of gratitude. We had just spent 6 beautiful weeks in Israel, showing our children their land, their story, their inheritance given to them by their forefathers. I stand there looking out over Jaffa Street below. I didn't know that was our sacred window, and I didn't know how quickly it would close. Only months later, everything shatters. Our sense of safety was torn away in a single act of horrific violence. The world we trusted suddenly tilted beneath us. December 14th, a day that feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago, all at once, a nightmare that keeps looping in my mind. Because even knowing the anti-Semitism that has always existed, even feeling the tension that had been building, nothing prepares you for terror to arrive so openly, so violently in your own backyard. This did not happen far away on a screen. It happened here in our home. It killed my father, Reuven Morrison, a man who had come to a Hanukkah celebration for his community to stand proudly as a Jew to bring light. And he did that here in Australia, a country he loved, a country whose values of fairness, decency, and freedom he believed in deeply, and in a moment, that light was taken from me as a daughter, from my children as a Zayda, from my mother as a husband, from our community as a pillar of strength and warmth. One of my daughters asked me, was Zayda killed because he was Jewish? What do you answer an innocent 7-year-old? How do you explain that something so beautiful, so ancient, so full of light can make you vulnerable in ways a child should never have to understand? I have no perfect answer.